What's up, everybody? Welcome to The Sweat. I'm your host, Jesse Cofield, ready to get you ready for a weekend of sports. And I am battling a summer cold, so don't be alarmed. But here's what's on the menu today. Game 4 down in Miami between the Heat and Nuggets. French Open picks. NASCAR hits the road. And, of course, a huge MLB slate tonight. But we're starting on the ice, okay? Vegas missed out, okay, on the opportunity to put the Panthers in a 3-0 series hole. Instead, Florida rallied late to take Game 3 in OT. DraftKings contributor Jeff Ulrich, RotoWire's Paul Bruno are here. Guys, the Cup had made plans to be in the house tomorrow, but a late tying goal by Tkachuk, OT winner by Verhaeghe, means we're at least heading back to Vegas. So, Jeff, we mentioned it yesterday. Huge spot for the Panthers, and they rose to the occasion.
Yeah, just admit it, Jesse. You were yelling at your TV, screaming for Florida to score a goal and do something like I was late in that game, and they finally did. Look, Florida played a really solid game last night. For all the goals that were scored against them in the first two games, those games were just not as far apart as I think the scores indicated. Florida had their chances in those first two games, and they didn't go in. Vegas capitalized, and it just went the other way quickly, but the first game was tied going into the third. This game was tied for large portions and just a one-goal deficit. And finally, Florida got some breaks. Bobrovsky played better. That game went, as a little bit closer than I hoped it would be. I thought Florida hopefully would have jumped out to a little bit of an early lead, as they did, and hold on to it better. But you have to love the fact that Florida finally capitalized on a couple of those opportunities. And let's not overlook the fact there's still room for improvement. They give up 6 power plays. If they can just go a game where they give up like 3 power plays, this team could absolutely come back here and really push this at least to a tied series. So really good effort by the Panthers. They did not give up. They got bounce backs from their veteran players. And I think this series is far from over.
Paul, do you agree? Far from over here?
I agree for sure. Like I said on yesterday's show, it could have gone 3-0 and you could plan the parade route. Otherwise, it's 2-1 and nobody's lost a game on the road. And traditionally, that means we still got a series that can go very deep. And I'm expecting it to go 6 or 7 now, feeling confident that Florida finally rediscovered their formula and applied it to how to beat Vegas. And they got Sergei Bobrovsky came off the mat after 2 terrible games to start this series to redo what he's done the entire playoff, and that's excel game in, game out. So they need that to continue for sure, and they got to find a way to contain that Vegas power play. Jeff said you can't give up 6 or 7 power plays against this club. They're even very good 5-on-5. So Florida's just got to up their game, their checking game. Was lacking in the first 2 games a little bit at times, but I thought they rediscovered that formula, and the goaltending was a key part of it. So if they can come up with a similar effort, I think we'll be tied after 4 games.
All right, Paul, let's look ahead here to Game 4. Who are you going to be riding with as captain in DFS?
Well, I'm banking on Florida continuing, as I said, with the same formula they applied last night, and that means that the goalie's going to be central to it. There wasn't a ton of shots on goal by Vegas, but lots of high-quality chances, and Bobrovsky really answered the bell, and I think he's going to do it again. He's got to do it again, in fact, to bring this series back to square after 4 games, and so he'll be my captain. I'm looking for a big game score from him.
All right, Jeff, you thinking that the Panthers continue here? You want one of them in your lineup as your captain?
I think Bobrovsky is a must-play regardless of if you use him in the captain spot or if you use him in the flex spot. But you know what? I don't mind playing for a bit of a Florida, not avalanche here, but definitely a wider win. I think Florida has finally just shown Vegas, who might be looking at themselves in the mirror a bit, oh, maybe we're not invincible, because I think they had that little bit of invincibility feeling right up until about 5 minutes left in the third period. And it just probably caught them a bit by surprise. It would not shock me if the Panthers came out and really put one on Adin Hill. I'm going to page Alec Barkov here to make an appearance in this series. This is going to be a bit more of a contrarian move for your captain spot, but this guy has to show up if the Panthers are going to push this deep at some point. He's too good not to. He had a big game against Carolina in the first, he actually had a couple of multiple point games against Carolina. So he had a much better series there. He's not done much against Vegas at all, has not scored a goal. I think that could change in Game 4. I think Alec Barkov here at home with a chance to really put his stamp on this series and push the series is a really interesting captain's candidate. He's got all the skill in the world, all the ability to put up multiple points, grabbing maybe even a shot on goal bonus. So That's not where many people are going to be looking, which I think makes it a really interesting contrarian play. Obviously, we're playing for top prize here, and if you want a low-owned captain and you like the Panthers like I do, Alec Barkov is where it's at.
All right, Jeff, let's move to the DK Sportsbook here. So what's a goal scorer bet that you're going to be looking at?
While we're trying to get Alec Barkov off the mat, let's get Sam Bennett off the mat. 11 games, no goals for this guy. He's got 44 shots on net since game 1 of the Toronto series, which is the last time he scored. Overdue is not even a way to put it for Sam Bennett here. This guy plays a lot of minutes too. He played 22 minutes in game 3. Is the third most time on ice, the third highest time on ice for all Florida Panthers forwards. He is going to be out there and he is getting opportunities. And Sam Bennett is an opportunistic goal scorer. And he's another player for Florida where if he starts to pick it up, this series is going to turn and tilt potentially really, really quickly. Sam Bennett's plus 195 on the DraftKings Sportsbook. And again, I really like this spot for some of the Florida Panthers forwards to potentially just wake up now that they've finally grabbed the game and just realize that the Vegas Golden Knights aren't indestructible and can be had. So give me Sam Bennett here at plus 195 for an anytime goal.
All right, Paul, when you're looking at the DK Sportsbook, what is a goal scorer bet that you like?
There are so many that I like in this game. I mean, Jeff's touched on 2 players that I had circled for Florida. Barkov at plus 185. This guy's such a talent, as Jeff said, and he's almost been overlooked when you preview some of the previous games. So I think he's well overdue to have an impact offensively. Sam Bennett, ditto for him. The playoffs plus 185 and plus 195, they're healthy returns. But don't forget about a guy who's been on a heater most of the playoffs, and it's Carter Verhaeghe, who's been their leading goal scorer much of the season, plus 150, a nice payoff there. If you're looking on the flip side, Jack Eichel was all over it last night, and he's plus 145. Mark Stone, similarly, plus 210. Those are fantastic payouts. So go big on this game, and you could be rewarded handsomely.
All right, Paul, what do you think? Are we going over the goal total here? Over in Vegas wins, under in Florida wins. Is that going to be the trend here?
I'm going on the latter part, Jesse. It's wash, rinse, repeat time for me. I had the call yesterday, and I was bang on. I'm going with the same formula that Florida needs to keep this tight and low scoring to keep that Vegas attack in check and give them the best chance to win. So it's Florida to win under the goal line.
Jeff, where are you going on this one?
I'm gonna go against it. I mean, I was pretty much on the exact same page as Paul yesterday. I liked the under. It was the contrarian move when you looked at where the money was coming in as well. Most of the public was on the over, but we had a 6 handle there for the first time in the series. And again, like Florida just playing a really close game at home. Vegas certainly was going for the throat there. But with Vegas now just a little bit on its back, I really think, again, we're talking about all these potential Florida Panthers forwards that could show up. If they do, I really think this game has a chance of just seeing Florida put up 4 or 5 goals. So I'm playing for a specific narrative, but I kind of like the over to play with Florida. I think that you could see an opportunity here where we get into the third and it's Florida getting those late goals instead of Vegas like they did in game 1 and game 2. So I'm going to lean back. We're getting plus money now on the 6 handle as well. In game 3, we were getting plus money to take the under. Now we're getting plus money to take the over. I'm going to take the over in game 4.
All right, Jeff, before we let you go, hit me with a game bet.
Game bet, I'm just taking the Panthers. It was minus 120 to take them on the money line in game 3. It's only minus 125 now. The Panthers have been kind of just a little bit undervalued all playoffs. And it's really no different here. What did we see with Vegas? They were like minus 140 at home after game 1. And you still got the Panthers at minus 125. They've got Sergei Bobrovsky now playing well. They've got a bunch of forwards where if they start to show up this series could tilt back. I'll just take what is basically the same line that we had in game 3, and we'll take the Panthers again to tie this series.
All right, Drew, you said you like the Panthers as well. Maybe going with something different, though? Maybe like a puck line?
No, I'm going to take the parlay like I did the last game. The formula has been rediscovered. I think they got to keep a lid on the Vegas attack, and I think they will. They'll up the ante physically and get on the defense early. And I still am not sold on the goalie in the Vegas net. I don't know what it is, but I just can't see Adin Hill being the star in this series. He's had a great playoff, but it almost doesn't make sense to me. So I'm going to stick with Florida on the under as a parlay.
Guys, thank you so much. As I mentioned, Lord Stanley was in South Florida yesterday, but as I also mentioned, will not be needed tomorrow night. So with all its spare time, the Cup paid a little visit to the Meadowlark Studios for a couple stories with Levitard and friends. Take a look.
I want to
Hope
touch
he
the
needed game
hair.
5.
I want to touch the hair. All right, let Mike Bolt in here, the keeper of the Cup. He is protecting him. Look at him. Oh, he's whipping that thing around.
It's heavy too.
Comfortable with that
He
thing.
looks so cool.
Hi,
Mike Bolt.
Yes, this is wonderful here, right here. Thank you. This is the actual thing.
Wow, it's so big that I can't see
Let's get a
Dan's
wide
face,
shot.
which is an upset. Oh, there's you do the John Taffer. I
Let's
can see your
Mike
face.
Bolt.
It's a walking museum, and you probably have a story about everybody there, and I'm sure they will always want the wildest ones, but I'd just like to pick a random name and see if you have a story about them.
That's a
Yeah,
fun.
okay. Who do you got?
All
That's
right,
a fun game.
Colin White, current Florida Panther, won the Cup with the New Jersey Devils. Do you have a Colin White story?
Colin White, yeah. I mean, I remember we were in New Glasgow, Nova Scotia. Took it all over the area, but I just remember going through the drive-through at about 2:30 in the morning in the limo with the cup and everything like that. And when we rolled up to go pay for it and get the food, the girls are handing us, and they're like, "Holy crap, that's the Stanley Cup in there!" And eating cheeseburgers with the cup at like 2:30 in the morning was it was pretty cool.
Timu Solani.
Timu. I remember that one in 07. That would be. I remember we were at his house. This one was pretty wild. They drank like just bottle after bottle after bottle of scotch out of there. They had it for about an hour and a half. It wasn't his actual day that he was going to have in Finland, so we just spent a little time there. And he had all his Finnish buddies, and there's names inside the cup, and they were assigning each one of the names that were inside the cup, like Pudglass and Strachan and those kind of names. And so, Pud, you're up. You got to drink out of it. And they went through like 4 or 5 bottles. And the thing that amazed me most is Timo walked the cup out to the car, perfectly straight, no problem. Most people would be on their butts.
All right, welcome back to the Sweat. NBA Finals going down here. So let's bring in a dude to make sense of it all. DraftKings contributor Jeff Pratt. All right, Jeff, let's get right into it, man. Who are you going to make your DFS captain in this one? Who absolutely must be in your lineup for 1.5 times the salary and 1.5 times the points?
Yeah, this is a boring answer, Jesse, but it's really become the only answer. If you aren't captaining Nikola Jokic tonight, you either are a Heat fan and have somehow talked yourself into the possibility of him being locked down in this game, which is completely unrealistic. You haven't watched a second of these finals, or C, you misclicked and you chose the wrong player. His ceiling from a fantasy perspective is just miles ahead of everyone in this series. And I think that you can make at least a case for Jamal Murray in this one. I know I did when I talked about captaining a player for the entire series before the finals got underway. But in reality, you have to play it safe and take the guaranteed points with Jokic.
Okay, well, his salary is also head and shoulders above everybody else. $23,400 in the captain spot. Obviously a lot of money, so who are you going to be stacking with him?
Yeah, it's fine that I'm spending money on Jokic because I'm saving it with this stack. There are a handful of high-level Nuggets role players that you could consider throwing into this spot. One name that I am definitely fading, completely staying away from, is Michael Porter Jr. because the guy simply cannot make a shot, and his minutes have significantly decreased because of that. For my stack, I'll actually roll with a guy who has benefited the most from MPJ struggles, which is Christian Brown at only 2,200. I would imagine he's going to be heavily rostered tonight because of that price tag, but you really have to. He didn't play much in the first game of the finals, but he saw an expanded role in games 2 and 3, and he really made the most of it. Over those 2 contests, he shot a combined 10 for 11 from the field. He racked up 4 steals. He managed just over 40 combined fantasy points. I would expect him to be heavily featured tonight, or at least as heavily featured as a role player can be, and he's pretty much forcing Michael Malone to play him because the guy's incredibly efficient. He's making an impact on the defensive end. I mean, Jokic even said he won them the game in game 3, so you know he's going to get on the floor tonight. I love him as a stack play with the Joker.
All right, let's navigate over to the DK Sportsbook. Favorite player prop tonight? Where are you going to be going with this one? A lot of options to choose from.
It's got to be Jamal Murray over 7.5 assists for me. Shrog here and I took him 7+ in our Sensational 6, which you can ride with on DraftKings Sportsbook right now. But I feel very comfortable taking the standard line here. In all 3 games of the finals, he's racked up 10 dimes. And as long as he continues to produce like that and his number doesn't drastically adjust, this play just makes sense. I do feel like if he goes for 10 plus assists again tonight, we'll finally see that line go up to 8.5, maybe even 9.5 if they really want to drastically overcorrect. And I would be a little wary of going that high, but I'm pretty confident that he can get to at least 8 tonight, especially with how much usage he's seeing. There is some value in rolling with him to be the game's assist leader too at plus 260. At least it was on DraftKings Sportsbook the last time I checked. He did it in game 2. He tied in game 3 with Jokic. So this is a feasible achievement for him.
All right, Jeff, what do you think about the total? It is sitting at 211 right now. It's gone under twice so far. Do you think we're leaning towards another under?
Yeah, the numbers say taking an under here makes sense. Recently in these playoffs games involving the Miami Heat at home and the Denver Nuggets on the road have gone under, and it just happened in game 3 with the pace that these teams play at. I would have to say, if you make me pick, it would be under. In reality, I'm staying away from this total. 211, 212 feels pretty risky to me because even if everything suggests that this game is going under, the pace, the shot making, etc., all it takes is a couple big quarters for both of these teams to finish in the 110s. And if that happens, it's going way over here. At the end of the day, these are still NBA caliber players. They can make shots, go on runs, unprecedented runs at times compared to what they've been doing the last few weeks. If anything, I'm actually looking to utilize a deflated over in a same game parlay. You can get solid odds on 201.5, 202.5. That feels safer to me than taking an under at like 211, 212.
Okay, Jeff, how about a game bet that you're just riding with for this one?
Yeah, just give me Denver on the money line. As much as I would like to see the Heat even up this series from an entertainment standpoint, game 3 really felt like a great reflection of this matchup. You know, Miami's a tough team. They're capable of forcing their opponents to play down to their level and grind out close, ugly wins. However, when the Heat don't let their opponents, or when the Heat don't control the way the game is played from an offensive standpoint and a pace perspective, and their opponents do, then Miami's advantage is completely eliminated. You know, the Nuggets dictated the way game 3 was going to be played pretty much from the jump. That allowed their talent gap, which, make no mistake about it, is a massive talent gap, to become the deciding factor. So as long as Denver doesn't fall into that trap of letting Miami dictate how the game is played, they'll get it done tonight, and they now have the formula for success after doing it 2 out of the 3 times these teams have faced off.
All right, Jeff, you mentioned the Sensational Six. So we have DK Nation's Sensational Six. You can take a look at it right here in the touch screen. And you can find that on the DK Sportsbook and a write-up of Jeff defending his picks. So make sure that you go check that out. All right, Pratt, let's transition here, talk French Open, okay? So the first semifinal going on right now, Djokovic and Garcia tied up 1 set apiece. Now let's talk about Rudd-Zverev match. What do you think about this one? Basically a pick-em. How do you see it playing out?
Yeah, I'm going to give the slight edge to Zverev here. He has the head-to-head matchup advantage over Ruud, and he's playing with a lot more motivation and heart, which I'm no disrespect to Casper Ruud, but this means a lot more for Alexander Zverev, because last year on this exact stage in the semifinal against Rafael Nadal, he suffered a really significant ankle injury, tore 3 serious ligaments, was carted off, was screaming. It was just a really ugly scene. And he has spoken about how he was really uncomfortable, you know, coming back to clay. It's a slippery surface. He's a tall guy, 6'6", 6'7". It's not easy for him to move around, but he has worked his way back to this exact stage. He's feeling a lot of confidence. He's in tremendous form. Casper Ruud, while he did beat Holger Rune in the last quarterfinal, I didn't see a lot from him. That was more about Holger Rune just not showing up for the first 2 sets of that match. So I'm going to give the slight edge to Zverev, but whoever comes out of that one is likely going to lose to whoever comes out of Alcaraz Djokovic.
All right, Jeff, over on the women's side, what is a bet for tomorrow's final that you're liking?
Yeah, as you can tell just by looking at the odds here, Jesse, this is not expected to be a close match. We were pretty much robbed of the final everyone wanted to see, which was the 1 seed versus the 2 seed, Iga Swiatek versus Arina Sabalenka, because Sabalenka had one of the worst collapses I have ever seen live. She was up 5-2 in the 3rd set on match point against Muchova and then proceeded to lose 20 of the next 24 points to drop that final set 7-5. And with all due respect to Muchova, I don't see a path to victory here for her in this match. Not only is the talent gap massive, but she's also not 100%. She suffered an injury. We don't know the specifics of it, but she clearly was laboring through that final set against Sabalenka. You obviously can't take Swiatek on the money line of this one. The value is just not there. So instead, I'm going to go back to one of my favorite strategies when betting on favorites and looking at the game total for their opponents, which is Muchova, and going under. For her, it's set at 7.5 right now. Iga has held all but one of her opponents throughout this tournament, well under that total. I expect her to do it again as she rolls to pick up another Grand Slam win.
All right, good stuff, Jeff. Thank you so much. Guys, big fight card for UFC 289 tomorrow night in Vancouver. And earlier this week, the man, John Anik, stopped by the studio to break down the Amanda Nunes, Irene Aldana main event. He did that with Emerson Latzia, so let's take a look at it right now.
All right, everybody, we are pleased now to be joined by the voice of UFC. We got host of the DraftKings Anik and Florian podcast, Mr. John Anik. Thanks for joining us. What's good, dude?
Oh, it's great to see you, brother. How are you?
I'm doing great. You look really good in that jacket.
That's
really
a great
good,
shade
buddy.
on you. I feel a little bit overdressed. You know, does the
I'm
suit
always-
make me look fat? No, my face does.
No.
That's okay.
No. And people are watching two former fat guys go to work here. Yeah. I know. Maybe in post edit we can punch up like our picks or whatever. Okay. So you were here. We're going to talk some UFC 289 from Rogers Arena in Vancouver. I believe you told me before UFC's back in Canada now for the first time since 2019.
Yes.
How do we feel about Vancouver, man?
Huge. It's a great
It's
city.
beautiful.
It's unbelievable. Culturally,
Yes.
the mountainous backdrops are just absolutely absurd. But in terms of the global pandemic and COVID-19, for a lot of countries, it was hard to get back in. And Canada, I think, was chief among them. So it took us 4 years to get back there. I have said in the past, per capita, like per person, these are the loudest crowds in mixed martial arts in Canada. The loudest crowd I ever heard in my life was in Montreal at UFC 113. Loudest crowd at any sporting event of my entire life. So it'll be packed to the nines. Amanda Nunes is headlining, and we're ready to go. Wheels up tomorrow morning.
Yeah, Vancouver recently ranked as the third most livable place in the world as well. It's beautiful. Fourth largest cruise ship terminal in the world. So maybe a lot of people will be dumping off cruise ships to watch the event, man. Should be a good time. Talk to me about this Nunes fight, though.
Man.
So her competition was kind of a late addition. Is that the fact? The fact there she kind of just slots in because of an injury?
Well, yes. So Irene Aldana is the title challenger,
Right.
and she was worthy of this championship opportunity, but Juliana Pena was getting the title shot. She broke her ribs during training camp, and now it's fresh blood for Amanda Nunes. And perhaps I could have put it better than fresh blood because Irene Aldana, in my humble opinion, is absolutely a live underdog this weekend. But I think Amanda Nunes has been revitalized in this training camp because it's a fresh opponent. She fought Juliana Pena twice. There's animosity in that rivalry. And against Irene Aldana, it's really just rooted in respect and competition. And she's excited to be training for a different challenge. And it's an appreciable one. Aldana's a Mexican boxer. She's enormous. And I think that she's going to extend Amanda. I really do.
Okay, and you think Amanda at all is motivated by these retirement rumors as well? Aren't people saying she's on the back nine here of her career, and you've talked to her, and maybe that's not so much the case?
Right. So I was at her gym, the Lioness Studio, last week, and it seems as though there's this narrative leading into her fights of late that, this is going to be Amanda Nunes' last fight. And I talked to an athlete that does not see the end anywhere near in sight right now. Now, she's made a lot of money. Obviously, she's the greatest women's mixed martial arts athlete of all time. But if she's able to fight 4 or 5 more times and realize those paydays, she can really set her family up financially for freedom in the future. I also feel like in terms of just the competitor that resides within, she feels like she wants to still fight, and she's getting a fresh challenge this weekend, I know there have been times, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, when I would sit with Amanda Nunes in a fighter meeting. I wasn't getting the energy that I liked from her. I got great energy last week. I feel like she is going to be primed and primal this weekend, and I wouldn't be surprised to see 3 or 4 more years out of Amanda.
John, is that how you get these elite fighters to stay motivated, is to put new, fresh blood in there between, the road, inside the cages for these guys? Because I'm sure after a while, it's just okay, I've fought you multiple times already.
No, it's a real mental hurdle when you have to prepare for an athlete a third time. And that's what Amanda Nunes was doing to fight Juliana Pena. So yes, I think seeing contenders emerge for Amanda, new contenders at 135 pounds or 145, let's also not forget she is the UFC Women's Featherweight Champion. But I also feel like sometimes she was just being drowned out by the training room at American Top Team. And a couple of fights ago, she started her own gym, the Lioness Studio, and I think that has revitalized her and just re-energized her mentally and physically. So we'll see what happens. You know, her wife, Nina Nunes, who is a very talented fighter in her own right, is expecting their second child.
All right.
And they want 4 kids, but I do believe that Amanda Nunes is not going to retire, win or lose this Saturday night.
She sounds motivated as hell right now. Co-main event, much closer matchup according to the DK Sportsbook here. So Charles Oliveira, and then you got Beneil Dariush going to battle out in the lightweight division here. Who are you giving the edge to right now?
All right, so this is one of the biggest singular fights of 2023. I would argue the UFC's lightweight division is still the deepest. I know a lot of people talk about bantamweight and featherweight. For me, our best division is 155 pounds. And Beneil Dariush has won 8 fights in a row. And as such, we've seen some money come in on DraftKings Sportsbook on Beneil Dariush. It was a pick'em last week. Now you see Dariush is minus 140 or so. Charles Oliveira is the most decorated finisher in UFC history, one of the greatest lightweight champions of all time. But in current form, I can understand why there is a swell of support for Beneil Dariush. All of that being said, I think if Charles Oliveira is thoughtful and defensively responsible, he's got plenty of ways to win. But I can understand that as we get closer to fight night, why seemingly money's coming in on Dariush and why he is the favorite.
Can you give me another fight on this card people should be paying attention to?
There's so many good fights on this card, but
Love
the
it.
one that jumps off the pay-per-view for me, Dan Ige, who has headlined twice for the UFC. He's been in the top 10 at featherweight, taking on Nate the Train Landwehr. Nate Landwehr has been must-see
love that
TV
nickname.
every step of the way, and he's almost more exciting on a microphone than he is when he's actually fighting, and that is saying something. But for a while, people just thought he was just this fun, exciting, energetic guy. Now he's won 3 fights in a row. He's putting guys away, and as such, he's arrived at the biggest fight of his life, trying to take Dan Ige's number in the top 15. Huge spot for Nate the Train this weekend. He's plus 205 or so right now on DraftKings Sportsbook, and that's the fight that jumps off the card for me.
All right, not to get too ahead of ourselves here, but let's fast forward to August 19th. UFC 292 coming home for you, man. You're a Bostonian. It's coming to Boston. Give me your level of excitement for this event. Let's go.
Emerson's going to be in the building at UFC 292. It is August 19th. Sugar Sean O'Malley is the title challenger. He has the blue corner, but he is one of the 5 biggest superstars in the UFC right now. He's one of the top needle movers in the company. And this Boston crowd is just going to lap up everything that this guy represents. So I'm excited to see Sean O'Malley get some of that Boston love. Aljamain Sterling, you can argue, is the greatest bantamweight champion of all time. It's a huge headlining fight. And it sounds trite and maybe coming from a Bostonian, it can ring hollow with some people. But this is a great fight town. And whether this was a fight night or a pay-per-view, I can guarantee you it's going to be packed to the top of the rafters and everybody's going to be into the fights, and it's a knowledgeable crowd, which I can't say about some U.S. cities, so I can't wait to get back here in a couple
I
months.
mean, hell, you know the people here in Boston and New England, they're fighters, and the sports teams kind of emulate that like as well here, dude.
It's going to be
Come
great.
on.
It really is. It's going to be festive, and I believe I said to you earlier today, UFC President Dana White was holding out to bring a really big show to Boston. He didn't want to bring a fight
he
night.
nailed
wanted
it,
to bring a
dude.
pay-per-view, and this is one of the biggest cards of 2023.
Where else would you like to see a UFC fight? Anywhere else?
It's a good question. You know, we have a show coming up in Jacksonville on ABC later in June. And I would suggest to people who live in the Carolinas or who live in Atlanta, think about coming to that Jacksonville show, because
That's a
you never
very
know.
easy trip down 95, by the way, folks. Dumps you right into
And
Jacksonville.
you never know when we're going to get back to Atlanta or get back to Nashville, Tennessee. But the one city that I thought of, the City of Bridges, I don't love that they have City of Champions written on the fire hydrants, but Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania has been a great market for us. And I believe, humbly, it's one of America's most underrated cities. So I'd like to see us get back to Pittsburgh, to a lesser degree Philadelphia, but I'd love to see us back in the
You
Steel City.
absolutely nailed Pittsburgh being an underrated city, man. After you get in from the airport, you get through that tunnel, and then boom, the city is right there. It is absolutely beautiful. How can you argue with a city that puts French fries on its sandwiches? For real.
I'm telling you. Yeah, I'd like
And
to
the
see
people
us.
are fantastic there, too.
Yeah, we've had a definite international flair to our pay-per-views this year, and the appetite for UFC live events has just never been greater. You know, I think we have like 30 successive sellouts, and wherever we go, they show up.
All right, speaking of showing up, congrats on like the popularity of your podcast here, Antiquarian Podcast. Like, growing on that now on the DK network, DraftKings network. It's on Samsung TV Plus, everybody, and also on the DK YouTube page. So get on and download the podcast wherever you get your favorite podcasts, like the Anik and Florian podcast. So give me a little tease of the latest episode here, what people can expect.
Well, thank you, man. We got 2 episodes this week. We look back at a contentious main event between Kai Kara-France and Amir Albazi, and then we have our UFC 289 preview with 6 predictions from my co-host Kenny Florian and our handicapper Brian Petrie. I'm calling the fights. Obviously, I don't make picks, but we're just thrilled, right? If we could have handpicked any partner for the Anik and Florian podcast, it would have been DraftKings. It would have been the DraftKings network, and it's rare that that perfect partner would be able to align and have that mutual interest. So we're over the moon.
Well, I am over the moon that you were able to make some time for us.
man.
You are perfect as
Thank you,
well. Safe travels to Vancouver, okay?
Oh, man,
Crush
appreciate
it.
All right, DraftKings contributors Jeff Ulrich and Pierce Dietrich are here to give their picks for the NASCAR Toyota Save Mart 350. Fellas, no F1, but have no fear. We're going to still see some right turns this weekend at the road course in Sonoma. So who is your favorite DFS play for those high-priced dudes, Jeff?
I'm going to look at Chase Elliott in this spot. Coming in as like the 3rd favorite, but I think that there's, you would say that Chase Elliott in terms of road course driving, I think a lot of NASCAR aficionados would probably say he's the best road course driver in the world. Even just going back to last year, Elliott led 121 of 529 laps that took place on road courses. So really high-end driver. And, you've also got a team in Chase Elliott's team that kind of needs a win just for where their placement is in the NASCAR standings. So all things considered, Chase Elliott has been back for a few races now. I think that you're getting him on DraftKings at, as the 3rd most expensive driver. You could certainly double dip here if you want, but Chase Elliott would be the guy up front where I would really be trying to build around, regardless of if you're trying to double stack 2 10K drivers or just want one. I think Chase Elliott would be the starting point for me.
All right, who's the starting point for you here, Pierce?
Chase Elliott is great, but let's pump the brakes a little bit on best road course driver in the world. I think Max Verstappen or Lewis Hamilton might have a little bit to say there. But as far as stock car racing goes, it's hard to beat Chase Elliott. But if there's one guy that can beat him, it's the guy that beat him at Sonoma in 2021. And that's his teammate, Kyle Larson. Kyle Larson's been a good road course racer his entire career. He just never really had the greatest equipment. Well, when he shifted to Hendrick, he started winning road courses, and one of his first wins was at Sonoma in 2021. Pretty much dominated the entire race. Last year, he was again on his way to victory. They just didn't play the stages correctly and had a bad pit stop, and that cost him the race. So as far as skill goes, Larson has it at Sonoma. He's going to have the car. I know it's pretty chalky to pick Larson every single week, but it tends to work out more often than not.
All right, favorite value DFS play here, Pearson. Is it harder to find value at a road course?
It's not. You can throw Austin Dillon up on the screen, but you can really go with almost anybody. This is kind of, and it's weird to say this, like plate racing light. I know most people won't think this is anything like Daytona or Talladega, but the way the DFS lineups fall into place, the best value driver is just kind of the guy that survives some of these crazy wrecks that can happen at the end of these races, or the guy that just pits at the right time. We don't have stage breaks anymore, and you used to get value drivers that could manipulate the stages. There's still going to be late race cautions, and a guy that pits at the right time is just going to cycle forward. Most of these value drivers are just good enough that they can hold a position. They don't really have to pass. They just got to hang on to a spot that they get on pit road. So really, anyone in terms of place differential, once we get qualifying, any cheap driver in the back, I think you should look at getting.
All right, Jeff, you can slot anyone in here. So who are you going with?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, like punting with one driver under 6K, as Pierce mentioned, I mean, they just need to kind of survive. That makes sense. But I do think there's some really good value on guys in the 7K range who just offer like really good top 10 upside. I think Michael McDowell at 7,400 is another road racer who just looks a little bit too cheap to me. He had 4 top 10s on road courses last year and 7 road course appearances. He was top 15 in 6 of those 7 road courses. He looks really good, just from price to what he offers standpoint. I mean, coming off a top 10 as well. So Michael McDowell at 7,400 to me just looks a little bit undervalued as well. Chris Buescher is another really solid road course driver with some really, really good results at road courses. He's under 8K. It lends itself to more, if you're going to be targeting the 7K range, I think that you can pepper it. And it lends itself more to a little bit more of a balanced build this week, I think. But At the same time, you can also just use one driver from this range and even go down and just take not whoever you want from under 6K, but certainly punt with one driver under there too.
All right, Jeff, over on the DK Sportsbook, what's a driver prop that you're going to be looking at?
Yeah, I mentioned Chris Buescher, and I look at his group when you're looking at Group A for the group matchups for this race, and I really don't mind taking Buescher. I mean, I know he's up against some solid road course drivers. Obviously, Daniel Suarez won this event last year. AJ Allmendinger, Indy background, but Buescher's been really, really good at these races, and just the fact that you're getting him at plus 300, I think just kind of screams to me that when you look at Buescher's consistency, which is a ton of top tens on road courses, I have no problem taking him here. I really kind of look at him as having maybe the most solid floor of all these drivers. It seems to me like Suarez is getting a bit of a bump in the odds just from being the defending champ. Allmendinger, I mean, he's pretty consistent on road courses, give him that, but I'm not sure if Buescher should necessarily be the massive, the clear underdog there. So Chris Buescher, Group A, I really like those odds.
All right, Pierce, what do you think? What's a driver prop that you're going to be looking at?
Kyle Larson minus 105 over Tyler Reddick. It's very rare that we get Kyle Larson in a head-to-head bet where he's nearly plus money. And I get why he's not favored by much. It's Tyler Reddick. He's been he's a phenomenal road course racer. He's really emerged over the last 2 seasons. And head-to-head at road courses in general, maybe Tyler Reddick is better, but at this specific course, I don't think it's that close at all. Reddick hasn't really grasped exactly how to run Sonoma, and whereas Larson has. So when it comes to track specific, I think there's a clear advantage for Larson, and so minus 105 over Reddick seems like an easy pick for me.
All right, before I let you go, Pierce, hit me with your pick to win at Sonoma this weekend.
William Byron. I think he's finally going to get his breakthrough win at a road course. He's been winning plenty this season, finishing in the top 5 a lot recently. He's been a good road course racer, just can never put the races together. In the last road course race at Coda earlier this season, he led 28 laps. He wasn't better than Tyler Reddick there. And again, in general, I don't think he's a better road course racer than Tyler Reddick, but specifically at Sonoma, a track where Byron and Hendrick have run well in the past, I think he gets it done and gets to victory lane.
All right, Jeff, your pick to win.
I mean, I'm just going to go with Martin Truex Jr. for the simple fact I think he's got one of the best odds on the board to take this outright. I mean, he's a fantastic road course driver, loves this course. Won here multiple times 2019. I think Martin Truex Jr. looks really good in the odds. I'm going to make him my pick.
All right, good stuff, guys. MLB Price Check is next. Will we see a lot of Ellie De La Cruz in lineups tonight? $3,700 for a guy who is taking baseball by storm. Sounds good to me, but we'll see what our guys think next. All right, big 13-game main slate coming our way in MLB tonight. DraftKings contributors Gary and Thorne, Tanner Kern, and RotoWire's Eric Halterman are here to give their favorite DFS plays at each price point. Eric, let's start with you. I need a pitcher over 8K. Who are you going with?
Yeah, a handful of decent options to choose from. I think I'd be going either side of the Shohei Ohtani Luis Castillo duel tonight. I'm going to go with the Ohtani side mostly because the Mariners have had the weaker offense so far. They sit 18th by Team WRC Plus versus 6th for the Yankees, or for the Angels, sorry. But I think Castillo is a perfectly acceptable, probably my second best choice. I wouldn't run them against each other because you'd max out at one potential win, but I like both of them tonight. Ohtani, 3.30 ERA is about as deserved as it can be. It actually exactly matches some of the ERA estimators. Expected FIP is exactly 3.30 and his SIERA is 3.31. So I think we can buy him as a 3.30 pitcher. A lot of the same things he was doing last year, although the walks are up a bit, just over 10%. Looking a little bit like last year's Dylan Cease with that very high strikeout rate, a few too many walks, but it doesn't matter. He gets the job done anyway. He wasn't great his last time out, whereas Castillo is on a good run, so maybe that pushes things towards his side a little bit. But really, I like both of these. I think I'd be picking between one of those two as my ace for tonight.
All right, Tanner, you got a lot of options over 8K, so who are you rolling with?
Ton of options. I'm going to go with Merrill Kelly for $9,300. 22.7 fantasy points in his past 10 games. Been absolutely crushing. On the road, he's been even better. 4-0 with a 1.63 ERA on the road, and been very dominant over his past 5 games, coming off a 7-inning, 5-hit, 2-run performance against the Atlanta Braves, one of the best offenses in baseball. And he's going to face a Tigers offense that, quite frankly, is terrible off right. He's batting .216 with just a 295 OBP. So really like Kelly to dial in tonight and score some fantasy points.
All right, Gary, and which pitcher over 8K do you have to have in your lineup?
I'm going to be in lockstep here with Eric. I like both those guys in that matchup. I like him. Am sort of hoping that maybe Ohtani not pitching amazing the last couple weeks will draw some eyes away. But, you know, at the end of the day, he's Shohei Ohtani. I think a lot of people are probably going to be willing to use him tonight. But ownership aside, I think he is the best option on this pretty good slate when it comes to high-priced pitching options. It's just the strikeout expectancy. I mean, you look at what he can do individually. He's got a 33.8% strikeout rate this season. That is the third highest qualified mark among starters in 2023. And then you've got the Mariners, who not only struggle to score runs on occasion, but strike out a lot. They have been among the major league leaders in strikeout rate for the season as a whole, but specifically in the last 2 weeks, they have a 28.1% strikeout rate as a team. That's the third highest mark in baseball in that span of time. So pretty simply, you could be looking at double-digit strikeouts from Shohei Ohtani. And if you can kind of pencil in double-digit strikeouts from any pitcher, probably use that guy.
All right, Tanner, let's move to infielders over 4,500. Who are you going to be rolling with here?
So I'm going to go with Freddie Freeman for 6,000, 11.8 fantasy points in his past 10 games. Been absolutely crushing. The man's hitting 333, which is second in baseball. And he's going to face a lefty tonight, which I don't necessarily love, but he's still batting 308 off lefties this season, which is very impressive for one of the best hitters in baseball. Going against Ranger Suarez, as I said, lefty there. I would stack the Dodgers against the Phillies tonight. Suarez is 1-2 with a 5.47 ERA and a 1.54 WHIP. Just simply has not gotten the job done. And when you look at Freeman, he's just been absolutely crushing over his past 5 games as well. So high average, high upside there for Freeman. Take advantage of it.
All right, Gary, and your infielder over 4,500 is who?
Well, I have to save every penny for my outfielder over $45,000. So I'm going to go with someone who's right at 4.5K, and that is Ryan Mountcastle. And look, the Orioles have been slumping offensively, but they get a nice, cushy matchup against Daniel Lynch tonight. This is a lineup designed to hit left-handed pitching. They do it very, very, very well. The loss of Cedric Mullins does not impact the Orioles' ability to hit left-handed pitching. Lynch has only made 1 start so far this season. Didn't go amazing. Someone who has struggled with the home run ball throughout his career, but Mountcastle has some goofy numbers against left-handed pitching. An OPS of 1.017, a 171 WRC+. He's got a 486 expected WOBA against left-handed pitching this season. That is the 6th highest mark in all of baseball. It's like Bo Bichette, Ronald Acuna Jr., and Ryan Mountcastle. So at $4,500, I think he's actually underpriced, even though he's been slumping a little bit lately. He is a platoon bat of all platoon bats, and he gets that lefty tonight.
All right, Eric, which end of the price spectrum are you going with your infielder over 4,500?
Yeah, I'm going to stick in that same lineup as Gary, and maybe I'm cheating the infielder category a little bit, but I don't know where else to put a catcher, certainly not an outfielder. So let's talk about Adley Rutschman here, 5,200. Same logic. I want to pick on Daniel Lynch, a guy with a 5.27 career ERA. Hasn't done much this season in the minors. I guess he had a 3.50 ERA in a small handful of starts, but he's 26 years old. I don't think we should be getting too excited about that. Lynch is a guy I want to pick on with Orioles like Ryan Mountcastle, who Gary mentioned, but also Adley Rutschman, who is already walking way more than he strikes out in only his second year in the majors, which is one of my favorite skills to see in a young player. Not only is that useful in its own right, because it means a lot of walks and not a lot of strikeouts, but it's also an excellent foundation to build other skills on. Rutschman hasn't shown a ton of power yet, but when you got that foundation and decent power from the catcher position, that's more than enough. The only worry maybe here is he would prefer to hit against righties than lefties, but I'm not even sure Lynch is going to remain in the game that long, so I don't think that matters too much.
All right, an outfielder over $4,500. Gary, and you saved all your pennies for this one. Is it perhaps one of the 2 most expensive guys, one of the juniors?
It is. It is Fernando Tatis Jr., who, look, I fully realize how popular Tatis is going to be on this particular slate. He's in Colorado. He's facing a left-handed pitcher. He's hitting 300 with a 425 isolated power against left-handed pitching this season, which is a small sample size, but when you look at his career numbers, he's got a 168 WRC plus against southpaws for his career. So this is just someone who, since we have known who this guy is, he has mashed left-handed pitching. Austin Gomber is terrible. I mean, it's not all his fault. He has to pitch half his games at Coors Field, but giving up over 2 home runs per 9 so far this season. So Tatis is $6,400. Anyone who can afford him is going to have him in their lineup, but I am going to be one of those people. I just think this is too good a spot to pass up.
All right, Eric, who do you think is in too good a spot to pass up in the outfield?
Yeah, I will take Tatis as a given and talk about my second favorite guy here, and that's going to be Kyle Schwarber. Gotta love paying well over 5,000. Yeah, 5,600 for a guy who's hitting 171. But this Kyle Schwarber, he doesn't get singles, he gets home runs, and he gets walks. And it's worked for him so far, and it particularly works for him in the month of May. If you look at him for his career, his monthly splits, and prorate those over 600 plate appearances, so like a full season, in every other month, he hits between 28 and 38 homers, basically. In the month of June, he averages 54 homers per 600 plate appearances. So he suddenly becomes perennial home run leader type. He always has plenty of power, but he's doing it again this year. Already 3 homers in the month of May. Platoon advantage here against Michael Grove, who of all the young Dodgers pitchers is the one that not at all scared of. His ERA starts with an 8. And I think that says pretty much all it needs to say there. He's not going to be that bad going forward, but anytime a guy's ERA starts with an 8 after, 5 innings or 5 starts, that's enough to say, okay, we want to use guys against him. So definitely Kyle Schwarber in the month of May. Ignore that batting average. Good a chance at a home run as anybody, pretty much against any mediocre or worse starter this month.
All right, Tanner, which outfielder over $4,500 are you going to be going with?
So I love Tatis, but in my theory of stacking against Ranger Suarez and the Phillies, I'm going to take Mookie Betts for $6,200, 12 fantasy point average in his past 10 games. The thing about Betts is he doesn't necessarily have to hit the ball to score fantasy points. He can steal, he can score runs. He gets on base consistently, and that's the reason to lean towards him tonight. Has over 1,000 OPS off lefties this season. That's up 150 points off compared to what he does off righties. The power isn't necessarily there, but the average is higher off lefties. And I do think the Dodgers are going to have a field day. He's going to have opportunities to drive runners in. He's going to get on base, and he's going to get driven in by his teammates. So very good opportunity to play Mookie Betts against Ranger Suarez tonight.
All right, Eric, finally take us home. We need a value play under $3,500. So where are you going with this one?
Yeah, let's go with one of the blandest but usable players out there. That's Brendan Donovan. Doesn't really do a lot, but, 6 homers, 4 steals, hitting .242. Brendan Donovan for the Cardinals. Is that batting average should come up into the 260s according to his expected batting average. But really what you like about him is that he should lead off for a lineup that is good and is facing off against Ben Lively. So I want a good handful of Cardinals here. Lively had a couple good starts this year before getting blown up a bit. And, it was a nice story seeing him coming back from struggling in the majors for a few years, going to Korea and being pretty good if you account for the fact that he was pitching in a tough park over there, but not dominant. It was cool to see him just come back and do anything, but I am not buying into Ben Lively 3.03 ERA going forward. I want plenty of Cardinals, starting with their leadoff man, Brendan Donovan, even though, again, he's kind of just a guy, but if he's just a guy at a fair price in a great lineup spot, that's the kind of guy I want rounding out my lineup.
Tanner, deliver me a value under $3,500.
So I'm going to go with Ryan Noda of the Oakland Athletics. I usually don't lean towards Athletics, but Noda's been crushing in his past 5 games. Has 8 hits over that stretch. He's got 6 in his past 3 games. He has a home run, a bunch of RBIs in there, and he's walking. He's consistently taking pitches, and that's been a good sign for DFS players. Going to go against the Brewers tonight. Adrian Hauser, not super afraid of him. 2-1 with a 3.45 ERA and a 1.44 WHIP. Hauser is a guy that has limited walks and homers this season, but he still gets hit consistently, and I like Noda to come through tonight.
All right, Gary, and take us home.
So somebody on the Twins is going to hit a home run tonight. Their lineup is completely decimated by injury. There's a reasonable chance they even have to put Jorge Polanco on the IL before this game. He left Thursday's contest with a hamstring injury. But Yusei Kikuchi has given up 9 home runs in his last 5 starts. It's what he does. When he's good, they're solo home runs. But like I said, some cheap Twins bat is going to hit a home run tonight, and you kind of have to pick out which one you want to go with. I'm going to say Kyle Farmer. I know we've talked about Donovan Solano. I actually thought Eric might talk about Donovan Solano when he mentioned a bland guy. But Solano doesn't have a lot of power, even though he is quite good against left-handed pitching. Farmer at least brings some pop in the bat. He's just $2,900 tonight. He's got a 122 career WRC plus against left-handed pitching. And the last time the Twins faced a lefty, because again, no one is healthy on this roster, Kyle Farmer hit cleanup. So give me a cleanup hitter for less than 3K against a guy giving up 2.5 home runs per 9 this season in Yusei Kikuchi.
All right, good stuff, guys. Thank you for getting us ready for the slate this evening. That's going to do it for us. I will be back Monday at 11 a.m. Eastern. Emerson Latzia will be by my side. Everybody enjoy your weekend.